All right, we're about a minute after the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and kickstart us today. First, welcome to Dun Bradstreet's webinar, Kicking Off 2022 Strong with Expert Best Practices. My name is Jonna Morris, and I will be moderating this live webinar. Before we begin and introduce our speakers, I have a few housekeeping notes for everyone. Today's session is going to be recorded, so it will be available for viewing post-webinar. During today's presentation, we invite you to submit questions you may have at any time through the Q&A box. Our webinar is scheduled to run for 45 minutes today, and we will be reserving time at the end to take your questions. So I encourage you to put those into the Q&A box throughout. Now, let's take a minute to welcome our presenters. First and foremost, we have Julian Archer, VP Principal Analyst at Forrester. Julian joined Forrester through the acquisition of SiriusDecisions. He has been with SiriusDecisions for almost 10 years, and during this time, he has helped clients with many of their demand creation challenges, notably demand waterfall improvement, event strategy and execution, and localization approaches. Within the last 4 years, Julian has devoted more of his time to helping clients understand the required strategies for sales and marketing functions to adapt to the global move for increased personal data privacy compliance, triggered by legislation such as GDPR, e-privacy, and Canadian anti-spam legislation, as well as overarching data management strategies. And Julian is joined by Crowley. Crowley is Vice President of Portfolio Marketing for Dun Bradstreet, with responsibility for go-to-market strategy for the sales and marketing portfolio of products. He is the nexus of content inbound, outbound, website, and sales enablement activities geared towards driving revenue growth. His experience working with customers of varying sizes across all major industries has confirmed for him that business growth is tied to the strategic use of data and analytics, and that continuous cultivation of good data helps accelerate the path from prospect to profitable customer. And with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Sean, to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Jonna. And thanks for everybody for joining us. Excited to be here live. Hopefully we'll be back together at the Forrester B2B Summit, actually, in May. Hopefully that's an opportunity for many of us to come together, or at any other events. Really excited about being here, and thanks to Julian for joining us. I think that we've got some really great insights that were generated from your peers in the B2B sales and marketing space. And then also to learn from the insights that Julian has been able to gather from working with a number of clients over a number of years. So from an agenda perspective, just want to kind of set the stage, talk a little bit about what we've seen in the marketplace, get into some of the findings that we found in the 8th annual B2B Sales and Marketing Data Report. This is a primary research that Dmv does annually here for the last several years. And it's just got some really good insights. Julian's then going to follow me and talk about how to implement some best practices around tracking revenue, improving data confidence, and looking at how you can go after improving data completeness as well. We'll wrap it up and we'll get into Q&A. So with that, one of the things actually before we get into it, because we're live, I'd like to make this interactive here. And so I wanted to, kind of poll the audience and get a sense of, who's here. So if you could just let us know kind of what your primary roles are. We'll give this about, 15, 20 or 30 seconds for folks. And this is great. We're starting to see kind of a good, I will publish this in just a couple of seconds here. We're getting there. All right. This is great. Thank you guys for being interactive. We'll have 5 polling questions throughout the course of the webinar here, and really want to would love to just get some insights from you guys in terms of what's going on and how I think that our content can help you. All right, so I'm going to end this poll here, and I'll share these results with folks. Seems like we got a pretty good cross section between sales, marketing, and operations folks, both sales ops, marketing ops, revenue ops, and data ops. So that's really great to hear, because when we did the 8th annual B2B data report, right? We went and we surveyed 605 different companies, and we interviewed decision makers from sales, marketing, and those operations roles, both rev ops, sales ops, marketing ops, and data ops. We primarily conducted research across US, Canada, and UK. And the primary focus was on B2B businesses, although, we did get some interviews with or surveys back from companies that are B2B to C companies. So this, you'll see, and one of the things that we found is that there's this emerging trend of, it's not necessarily B2B, it's B2P, or business to human, right? Because you have to interact with those individuals in order to influence them and give them the information and hopefully inspire them to move from the status quo and to buy your products or services. One of the key things that we've seen, this is not just the last year, this is certainly over several years, is that, in order to drive growth, we've got to evolve to counter some common challenges that are always out there. And if you think about it, it's kind of, privacy of data, the proliferation of tools and technologies, and the personalization that people are requiring now in the buying journey. If you think about, the last 2 years and the digitization of all of how we interact with not only our personal brands on the personal side, but with the brands and the businesses and the partners and vendors that we do business with, it's all been digital. Right. And it's, not surprising to have your B2C buying behavior bleed into how you evaluate products and the experiences that you want from the vendors that you're engaging with. Right. So, the challenges around for businesses, for vendors that are trying to engage and influence, those audiences, the demand for privacy has gone up, right? GDPR, CCPA, CCA, it really is becoming an imperative for organizations to deal with. And secondly, the massive proliferation of technology. How do I handle the data that's flowing in from all these different interaction or engagement channels that I can create now with this great technology? How do I bring that together to actually create meaning and make it relevant to me and to the people that I'm trying to do business with? And then finally, we have to have more relevant engagement. If you can't do these things, it leads to more complexity, to less clarity, and to lower conversion rates. And when we looked at, kind of the results from the survey, COVID-19 pandemic certainly amplified those core challenges. But three things clearly stood out from what we saw was, one, the increased digitization, right? And I talked about that. All of our interactions are moving now. That is not a digital transformation, is no longer a nice to have. It's an imperative that you have to deal with. Secondly, data urgency. You have to turn data into insights and turn that into value to the business and to your customers as well. And then the third thing that was really the most interesting is this unifying around revenue teams and having an aligned approach to how you go to market. We've always talked about this, that sales and marketing and product need to be closer together, that operations teams need to have a closer engagement with their partners. This is now becoming an imperative for businesses, and we're starting to see organizations start to make, or businesses start to make, organizational changes and actually denote people as a revenue operations team or revenue teams to facilitate that collaboration. So this brings up the next polling question here in terms of, which of the following go-to-market objectives, if any, do you consider to be a top priority for 2022? So as we talk about these revenue teams aligning, I'm just interested in, and this is something that we asked in the survey as well, to understand, how people are orienting and what is really kind of a top priority for them in terms of how they're going to market. So this is when the Jeopardy music would come on and give people a few minutes of time to answer here. The questions are coming, the responses are coming in, which is great. We're about halfway through respondents. This is great. Thank you guys for engaging. Really important. We try to facilitate things as easily as we can, make this more like we're all in the room together. This is one of the benefits of these technologies, which I think is great. Okay, thank you guys. And what we're seeing here, right, unsurprisingly, is that you have this, there's kind of a balance. People are obviously focused on supporting the overall company revenue goals. Many people are seeing this as driving new customer acquisition as a primary driver. And then, also, improving customer retention and expanding share of wallet. All very important. And ultimately, they're all related to driving towards the overall growth goals of the business. What we saw was also a pretty evenly balanced response towards this. And again, all these things are geared towards supporting the overall revenue goals. It just represents where people are prioritizing, probably represents where they either see the greatest opportunity for growth or they've seen some of the biggest challenges in the previous year's results. If you're focusing on, customer retention, maybe you saw a massive drop in retention or an increase in attrition rates. So you wanted to shore that up. You want to drive new customer acquisition, obviously a key growth factor in terms of bringing in new customers. And Julian's got some really great insights about where you start and how you identify initial opportunities to engage with prospects and or customers can create this virtuous cycle in terms of one opportunity leading to several other ones when you look at the overall customer lifetime value. So let's get into kind of what we found here. And what we found in the survey clearly was that, leaders were different than what we called the rest. And we saw this, that 34% of the businesses that we surveyed reported that their sales and or marketing performance improved greatly over the last 12 months during the height of the pandemic. And so because we saw this clear demarcation point, we were able to look at the data through the lens of what were the leaders doing and what was the rest doing. And it doesn't mean that the rest were serious laggards. There's certainly nuances to that, but there was a clear demarcation. And what we were able to determine is kind of three key best practices. One is that leaders have a solid foundation of data quality. They focus on it, they organizationally are aligned to it, and they use that as a way to generate insights. The second is an orientation around account-based sales and marketing strategies. Utilization of that data to refine their total addressable market, to focus their energies on a select set of accounts that can, be either small or at a certain scale and size, but there is a focus there. They're using ideal customer profiles to hone in on specific areas and to focus where they're investing from a sales and marketing perspective, both from a resource as well as a funding perspective. And then the third is that leaders are aligned with an up-to-date, complete, and single view of accounts. So this is the next. It's not you have a focus on accounts, but how am I leveraging first-party data to understand how well I'm doing at engaging with those accounts? So the first best practice, leaders have a solid foundation of data quality, of quality data and data governance. And this really is around the idea of, is the data structured consistently? Is it complete? Is it up to date, right? And does it reflect and enable them to identify target audiences more readily, right? And you can see here, there's still work to be done on every part, but there was a clear split, and between those who were considered, did well in the last 12 months and those who didn't necessarily do as well. So focusing on that is obviously a key towards, success, but the challenge still remains for everybody. So that, 55% of those of the leaders, versus 33% in general, what we saw was the kind of the split between the two. And then what you saw, there's a variety of reasons why people, have a challenge with that, either financial considerations, knowledge of best practices, better returns on investment, other initiatives, skill sets internally, right? So these are some of the challenges that we all continue to deal with. And one of the perceptions that I like to try to kind of continue to break down is that I don't view data management or data quality as a cost center for the business. I actually see it as a revenue driver for the business, because the gains made by having clean, complete, and actionable data far outweigh the cost it takes to resolve those things. So you can flip the script on those if you look at it in the right way. And here at DMV, we can certainly help you visualize the current state of data quality, build a business case on how and why addressing it will actually drive incremental revenue for your business. So that's an opportunity for us to potentially engage after this event. The second best practice is aligning and utilizing an account-based sales and marketing strategy. And while the acronym is ABM, it really is an account-based sales and marketing strategy, because those two teams need to come together and align around a common understanding of who their target audiences are, where they'll see the best growth from, and then both working in tight coordination to execute on that. And here, 86% of the teams that utilize an ABM approach saw increased performance from their sales and marketing efforts, whereas 36% of the teams that didn't use ABM, or only 36% of the teams that didn't use ABM, saw growth. So there's a clear correlation between, if I adopt an ABM strategy, I have a higher likelihood of driving incremental growth to the business. And so this leads to the next question, just to understand where people are in the marketplace, right, is what best describes your adoption of ABM. So we'll just get this out there just to kind of understand. I personally think well, I don't want to influence the answer, so I'm not going to say something here. I'll give this about 15 or 20 seconds. Okay, getting there, almost halfway. Again, thanks for the interaction here. It's always nice to, when we're doing these things live, to actually see some interaction with folks, and I certainly appreciate it. Okay, from a time perspective, I'll just end the poll here. Seems like things are balancing out, and once again, we've got a pretty even distribution between those who are up and running and have been for some time, all the way down to either not in my strategy or haven't adopted this formal strategy yet. So thanks for your honesty here and filling these things out, and your willingness to kind of participate here. I think this is kind of about where we see people in the marketplace, at least those that I'm talking to. The majority of people are striving towards this. Depending on what your business is, there's always nuances where an ABM strategy might not be the right thing, but certainly what we found is that those that do align around it can drive some pretty significant growth. And then finally, the leaders are aligned with a single and complete view of accounts, right? So this really goes towards recency of information and how effective businesses are at leveraging first-party data. That is the data that they can capture that with the engagements of their target audiences. It's proprietary in nature because you control it. And the real power comes in, can I combine first-party data with third-party data sources to understand potentially how to create an ideal customer profile, and then look into lookalike modeling and what does a total addressable market look like. Incrementally from just like those first-party signals, it's how effective are you at measuring campaign success. So when we found that more than half of the leaders are completely confident in their go-to-market teams aligned around this. So that was a pretty telling statistic, that they're confident around being aligned in this. And it really is very, very important when you look at today, this emergence of revenue teams. We talked about the proliferation of technology and the need to accommodate data privacy. This is really hard today when you think about all the different things or use cases that have to go into creating a go-to-market strategy, and then measuring and engaging, activating those audiences and engaging with the people that you want to do business with, all the way from acquiring and maintaining that customer and prospect data to creating ideal customer profiles and targeting those buyers with precision in your marketing efforts, and then aligning with your sales team so they can prospect and prioritize who they want to prospect into, right? And the marketing team can then layer on activation channels to provide air cover for your sales team as they're prospecting in, but really looking to generate engagement, both from an outbound and an inbound perspective. And then that feedback loop of the first party data and insights is really critical to understanding how well am I doing? Am I penetrating my target markets effectively? And if not, why? Who is engaging? Who's not engaging? Those are critical questions that we all have to ask one another. So with that, I'm going to hand things off to Julian here because, I want to give him a talk about how do we start to operationalize some of these best practices. So Julian?
Thanks ever so much indeed, Sean. And you're right. You've been talking a lot of great insights there around the data. So thanks ever so much for inviting me on the call today. And I really like to sort of dig into the weeds if we can now and understand why we're doing all this work around data. Well, we're trying to do it because we want to try and generate revenue, don't we? So we will need to understand the data implications for how organizations are changing the way they're tracking revenue and the implications for data and data management. Now, one of those key things, the same way that things like GDPR drove us to be better data managers, we also need to make sure as data providers, data stewards within an organization, that we are giving our end users, our internal customers, the confidence that the data we're providing is going to be accurate and timely at the right place. So I want to talk to you about data confidence and how we can ensure a solid first-party data strategy. And then finally, we talk a lot about records and how many contacts and account records I have, but actually we need to talk about completeness as well. So I want to show you and share with you a method of measuring completeness, and then we can start talking about quality and completeness in a more scientific way. So with that, let me move on to the first topic, if this can actually work. I hope this works. Yep. Let's talk about tracking revenue. Now, many of us have been talking about leads for a long time, the individual. But we know for hundreds of years, B2B buyers actually buy in buying groups. The business unit for which the need arises goes out to internal folks, to influencers, other people, the CFO, the IT director, a champion, a business unit owner. And they say, come together, guys, form a buying group to help me solve the problem I have. And so what we are seeing, of course, is that more and more people are turning to understand the interaction and relationship between buyers to make sure that we understand as marketers and the sales folks that we are tracking the relationships of these buying groups as they move through the sales cycle. And so whilst this is not new, the technology that we have, the systems, the processes that are available certainly make it possible now to start tracking buying groups rather than the individual lead. So I have a first question for you. If I look forward and say, okay, this is the next polling question. If I can fast forward one, can it go? Sure, maybe you can move the screen for me because it's actually, there we are. I have a polling question. So we are at the moment thinking that most people are probably still using the lead, which is the individual. Are you tracking the lead? Or are you actually now moving to the idea of tracking buying groups? Because buying groups are how B2B buyers buy. So we need to do something like this. We need to have better data and understanding. So I'm seeing the results come in. So far, it's great to see so many of you have actually got the buying group oriented approach or are wanting to move there. I must admit, when we put this poll in questions, I thought there'd be a far higher proportion on the leads. Obviously, it's the highest right now, but it's great to see many of you are moving or have adopted that buying group approach. So I'm going to talk more about that now. So I'm going to end the poll there. Thanks ever so much indeed for sharing. That's very interesting indeed. So let's move forward to the next slide because I want to really see. This is causing me some issues, guys. So okay. So what I'm showing you right now is a waterfall. This is how we track revenue. And what it's showing you, and this is what has a great implication for your data management, we need to be far smarter about not only identifying our markets and our potential clients, our potential customers, but actually being very specific about the accounts, the account hierarchy, and you'll see that word target opportunities. That means where can we sell our solutions? So we're being very specific. So we're already thinking way ahead of time, not just reaching out to an account we think is in our target market, given the revenue size, given the right territory, but being very specific about the decision-making unit and about what solutions we can sell to what buying centers inside that account. Then we're going to start tracking as well and understand there are many times people are interacting with each other, they're finding out information, there's information and insight and influence outside even before people start engaging with us. So can we start to detect these signals via social media, via insights, via predictive analytics, for example? Can we detect activity in the market prior to anybody actually engaging with us? Then, of course, we need to start tracking when an individual or individuals, multiple people within the buying group actually engage with us. We would then identify via multiple lead scores from individuals, where we consolidate those individual lead scores into a buying group score. We can prioritize where we think something's going to happen. Via our revenue development reps, we can start using human validation, ringing up, qualifying, and then we can move on and pass that through to sales for the pipeline, and we hope they're going to win. So what we are talking about now is something really different than actually just the leads. Again, it's not, what we are doing is saying we need to understand the personas and who they are in real life, i.e. the real contacts, how they've come together to form a buying group, and we're attaching those contacts to the opportunity record in our CRM system, and we are using the opportunity record to actually start passing information from sales to teller, from marketing to teller to sales. We are not thinking ever about marketing are now responsible for putting things in the pipeline or making forecasting decisions. No, we're just using the opportunity record inside your CRM system as a method of communication. Now that has implications for data. That means we have to make sure our contact to account matching is working properly. We have to make sure our account hierarchies are correct. We need to make sure our data is clean and solid and viable to be able to do this type of activity. So we are now attaching buying group members to the opportunity record. We are then tracking opportunities and not leads as they go through the waterfall. And you'll see from that pipeline stage, this is not a marketing construct. This is a sales, marketing, and customer construct. This is a joint effort to track revenue from top to bottom. So far, so good. I want to show you how we're actually changing the diagram now into a bar chart. So we've changed the waterfall into more of a visualization now, and it's showing you this can now be wider bands or deeper bands to show the volumes and the levels that you're talking about. Fundamentally, on the left-hand side, we still have the same stage names going through. And what's important is that we're measuring and tracking before people come to us. We're going through our qualification process, we're handing it through to sales, and now marketing and sales are using the same object to communicate. We no longer have this leads smashing against opportunities type of battle that used to go on. So far, so good. I think it's important we start asking ourselves, okay, I won this deal, what happens next? Yes, many of you say that in the poll just now that you're looking for new accounts. Of course you are, but many also said you're trying to gain more dollars from your existing accounts. So we need to start thinking about when that deal that you've just won is signed. You don't just think, okay, well, I'll wait till they engage me again. No, you start and you open and you create a new opportunity at the target opportunity stage. And what you're seeing here is the fact of we differentiate between current customers and candidates. I don't call them prospects. Why not? Well, because actually a prospect could also be a customer. A prospect also sounds like a near-term sales opportunity. So really a candidate for me is a non-customer, and you have an acquisition type of opportunity record, or current customers, and you have now retention opportunities. So immediately you're being more granular about the type of messages and campaigns, but also the people involved, and also the way you track that revenue. And let's even move further forward, because it's not only acquisition and retention opportunity types, we obviously have other types as well, like upsell and cross-sell. So what I'm going to do now is show you the final waterfall that actually lets you track different opportunity records throughout. You're actually using marketing, sales and customer success all being together using the same method of tracking revenue. So I think that's really important. This has massive implications for data quality, data requirements, but also lets you as a B2B marketer and sale really, if you like, understand and mirror the reality of what that we know is there for hundreds of years, that B2B buyers buy in groups, not as individuals. So that's great implications for data. So far, so good. So now let's move forward, if my screen will let me do that. How about this? Yeah. So if you think about it, we now need to make sure that our data, because we're now tracking buying groups and all the governance and the rigor and the discipline required, how can we ensure data confidence for our marketers and sales folks as well? So with that, I want to talk to you about our first-party data strategy and our implementation process. As Sean has said, and you've heard from the introduction about myself, I've spoken about data privacy for a long, long time. All data has to be compliant. You need to have a lawful basis for processing the data that you hold about an individual. If it's at the account level, not so important. Fundamentally, the data must be compliant. But so far, so good. Let's talk about the other things. We are not collecting data for our health. We're not collecting it for fun. We are collecting it to drive processes, like the waterfall I've just shown you. If you're a marketer, you're collecting data to drive better campaigns, maybe prioritization, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, in these three boxes on the left, what we're looking here is to make sure that our business requirements are fully addressed and understood. Our business is of making sure that we have a solid governance process in place, that the data we are incorporating and ingesting is the right data. We need to understand that it's compliant data. But that process identification I'm talking about there, that's really important, because it's not just about the waterfall, it's understanding what elements of contact records and account records you need at every single stage of that waterfall to make sure you can drive that opportunity through the waterfall further. So fundamentally, you need to be working with sales and marketing to identify the processes and identify the types of data that you need to drive that process. One of the ways you must do that, of course, if you're a data steward or if you're a marketing or sales ops, you need to go to your internal customers, the data consumers, the marketers, the campaign folks, the sales folks, the channel people, and understand what it is that they require and what's critical to quality. So these three boxes really make sure that you have a solid foundation for when you start to do the nitty-gritty of getting data in and managing it and curating it. It's making sure you understand, why am I doing this in the first place? What is the data that I need? Oh, sorry about that. Okay. We're going to move forward now and then think about, okay, the nitty-gritty data management part. Here, for example, I'm talking about, do you know where the data comes from that's in your systems? I've asked that to so many clients and they say, no, actually. You need to audit what data you currently have, the volumes, the quality, where it sits, where it's come from. Get your arms around that, because time and time again, I've worked with clients who've then conducted this, what I call a port of entry analysis. And they've discovered that they thought they had 150,000, 200,000, 500,000 contact records, which were great. And they realized that actually, it was pretty rubbish stuff. They hadn't got a clue where it came from. They didn't really know where it resided. And all of a sudden, they now have, via this auditing the current state, they have a good handle on what data they are managing. So that's a really important step. If you understand your revenue goals, your target accounts, the type of opportunities you need, the various breakdown of where your revenue is going to come, then you can start understanding any gaps or shortfalls in the data that you have or haven't got. So then you can start having an acquisition type of policy. Now, you all know, and we all know, that data comes from multiple sources, and many times you're trying to unify data from multiple sources to give you that better insight to help you reach your systems. So what you also need to do is to then curate that data. Understand, for example, what your retention policy is, how it is that you're going to maintain that quality. Think about your deduplication policy, your deletion policy, absolutely, when you delete data. And then finally, all make sure that throughout the whole process, you're measuring the results. So let me ask you a question, if I can, if it moves forward again. I think the next polling question is coming up. So I'd like to know right now, if you think about your ability to deliver data to your internal end users, how confident are you that your data is well governed, that your data management is good, that it's delivering that very, very good trusted data? Let's see. Well, I love to know about the people who are very, very confident. I'm seeing people coming in, but most of you are not very confident yet. That's the majority, but still somewhat confident. It's great to see that very few of you are not confident at all. So I'm going to share those results. But
that's progress, Julian, for sure.
Progress, absolutely, Sean. I like that very much. It's when someone says I'm very confident, that as we say in the UK, that warms the cockles of my heart. That's what we are. Brilliant. Okay, cool, excellent. So let's move forward, and because I think what's very important is that I'm asking you about the quality of your data, how confident you are. But I think it's really we have to ask the question: do you have a standard methodology inside your organization of talking about data completeness, data quality? Because what we often hear is, my data is great, or my data is no good. Think about the following though. If you are talking to non-data savvy people, i.e. if you're not a data steward or you're not in the operations team, you're talking to, mortal marketers or mortal salespeople, okay guys, I can start talking about this on the left-hand side of the screen. I can talk about tiering the quality and completeness of my data. I know for a fact that inside your databases today, you have contact records and account records that are absolutely rubbish. They are unreachable. So you may think you have a contact record, actually it's unreachable. So let's think about that tiering. You have a percentage that are unreachable. You have some where I have an email, I can send them an outbound mail, assuming it's compliant. I may have basics, so I can do some targeted work, or I might have a complete record. So if you break the tiering into these 4 buckets, then you can start talking about a percentage of X or a percentage of Y. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you have to always have 100% complete, as Sean was saying. Some of you are doing ABM, some of you are not. You may be perfectly happy with basic level of quality data as opposed to complete. If you're doing ABM, you may need the complete. But the data stewards amongst us, we need to move forward and identify what fields need to be populated and validated to justify the tiering on the left. Now, this will be different for each of you. Those of you in GDPR countries, you're going to have compliance. I've said here the appropriate consent. If you're in the US, maybe you don't need consent, of course. So in other countries, you do. The point is, you must work as a joint sales and marketing team, as stewards, to understand what fields must be populated. And now you can start putting your arms around the completeness. Now you start breaking it down and start managing it and talking in a scientific way about the completeness of your data, rather than saying, well, it's good or it's bad. So this is one way I recommend thinking about your data, understand where data's come from, and then start measuring it like this. Now, but there's one other thing, one very other important point, which is the recency. You may have a wonderfully complete record, contact record, but when was the last time they engaged with you? So I'm showing you now a chart. On the y-axis, going up the side here, there's that profile completeness I mentioned about that, from unreachable to complete. But on the x-axis, we're looking at engagement. When was the last time this contact actually reached out to you? I don't mean when you sent them an email. I mean, when did they reach out to you? Was it 12 months or 24 months or 36 months? I would break that down into to match your own sales life cycle. That would be the way to do it. And what you'll see very rapidly is that your complete or minimum sort of or basic sort of qualifications of data quality and completeness is great. But the level of engagement, the level of recency is probably not what you wanted. And so the top right, 15,000, now they're your crown jewels. They're the ones who are really special. But the bottom left, which is unreachable, and just surprise, surprise, they haven't engaged with you. That would be a measure of perhaps ready for deletion, for example. So bringing that completeness and this recency together certainly helps bring out the idea of a measured way of measuring the completeness and quality of your data. So I hope that's helped. But I really wanted to show you in summary, you have to, if you're in the B2B space, shift from managing leads to opportunities. Leads track the individual, and you know what you're saying. If you pass on 5 leads, you know for a fact that 80% of those, 4 of those, are going to be duplicates, because what you're saying, every time you pass a lead, you genuinely believe it's going to be a sales for an opportunity. No, it's not. People buy in groups, so move to opportunities and track buying groups via the opportunity record. Think about what I said about opportunity types. You're going to have different campaigns, different engagement, different people, if it's going to be an acquisition type opportunity or a cross-sell, upsell. So start using the opportunity types and mapping those. Review your first-party data strategy. You are in charge of this. You are absolutely going to be compliant if you manage your first-party data strategy properly. And then review and expand your data measurement metrics, as I've just suggested with the quality. So Sean, I hope that was useful for folks. I'm going to pass it back to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Julian. I think that those are some great recommendations, and certainly, get people some insights into how to start to operationalize these insights. And it's just to kind of wrap it up, I want to give some opportunities for people to ask some questions here. Some have already come in through Q&A, so thank you again. Love the interaction here. Right, we're talking about kicking off 2022 strong, and I think it comes back to you need to start acting like a leader, right? And there's clear opportunities for many people, and there's also a bit of a roadmap from what we saw in the 8th annual B2B data report. It starts with aligning around a shared view of accounts, prioritizing data quality, set that foundation of data quality in place so you can garner the insights required to refine your approach to the market. Julian talked about a shift from leads to opportunities and the importance of looking at that in the context of buying groups and understanding that you have to influence more than just one person. Integration of first and third party data in a consistent way across the systems and platforms, that utilization of your first party data strategy that goes towards your measurements of campaign success, towards the measurement of your data, as well as an evaluation of how you are managing or sourcing common third party data as well. Leaders have shown that by focusing on an account-based strategy, they can drive incremental growth, and it helps them understand and start to orient around the lifetime value of that customer. So it's not just about the acquisition, it's about the acquisition. It's about solving their business needs, finding opportunities for upsell and cross-sell, and then ultimately retaining that customer. And then obviously there's the whole advocacy point of it as well. Turn them into advocates for your business. So all of these things, and I think one of the challenges is, like, there's a lot here on this slide. So, and people like this can be overwhelming. Try not to boil the ocean. Pick 1 or 2 things that you want to focus on, put the energy, the resources, and the focus on those, solve for that one issue, see success, and move on to the next. That way you can start to operationalize a lot of what you heard today. One easy way to get started is with what we call a Dmv Iq report. This is an easy way to visualize your current state of data quality and identify new growth opportunities. This is a free service that we offer. It's a matter of sharing a sample data set that you have. We run some analysis on that, and we help you understand what the current state of your data quality is. Completeness, duplicates, recency of that data. We identify opportunities for corporate family linkages, so you can identify cross-sell and upsell opportunities, and help you identify where the most opportunities for growth is, either here domestically or internationally as well. So there's a link here to where you can access the report. I'll also put it into the chat button when we start doing the Q&A as well. And then these will also be in the slides when we distribute them afterwards. I've seen a number of questions. Yes, we'll produce a PDF version of these slides and get them out to you as well. So with that, Jonna, why don't we, in the couple of minutes we have left here, why don't we jump into some Q&A?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Julian and Sean, for that excellent presentation. I know it was chock full of best practices and learnings that folks are anxious to get their hands on. So that recording and PDF will be coming out shortly following. But if you do have a question, please pop it in the Q&A box. We already have a couple that have come in. So gentlemen, the first one I want to address How are buying groups identified? Various organizations, agencies, associations, market clusters. Can you give a little bit more of your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll kick off there, Sean. What we see, of course, is that sales and marketing need to identify who are the typical personas that actually buy your solution and how many people are it. We often see many times it's between 4 to 8 to 10 people, and the various types of personas that are brought together to make that buying decision. Then, of course, you have to, within your database, match the personas to the actual contacts that you have. And so you can start identifying the potential buying group members at an early stage. And then you can start seeing via the activity, either before they engage or once they've engaged, via your website, via conversations, via meeting them at online events or in-person events in the future, we hope. All the ideas, identifying these buying group members, you can see what activities and information they're downloading. So you can start making linkages between the information and content that they are consuming with the type of solution and opportunity that you put together. Now, it's important that you can start identifying, are you going to be very important? Is it very important in one or more? So you're now engaging with one or more people, not just hoping that that one lead is the master lead who's going to buy something from you.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Julian said. We use here at Dmv, we're very persona based in terms of how we go to market, and we have a variety of solutions that address, the sales leader persona, the marketing persona, the data operations, sales operations. And what we've noticed is that and we go back and we've looked at past opportunities that have resulted in closed won. And then we've done analysis on those accounts and said, who has engaged with us from that account during this buying cycle, who downloaded white papers, who came to our website, who filled out forms, et cetera. And we use that as a way to create a compiled understanding of who the buying group is. And then we try to use that as a way to refine the messaging that we're putting out there in the market to ensure that we are helping to answer the questions of the various people that are engaged. Because when you think about it, there's going to be your end user, there's going to be a managerial or functional level, and then there's going to be the directorial or strategic level. So you have to understand that, am I presenting the right level of information? And then, of course, there's an economic buyer as well. So am I presenting the right information that is going to help that person who's a member of that buying group feel comfortable with us as a potential solution provider, and also inspire them to move on from their status quo and make a change and choose to do business with us? And that's why I love marketing, because it's about inspiring people to make change and helping them feel confident in those decisions. And so you, as a sales or a marketing or an operations person, confidence that you build, the confidence that you have in the decisions that you're making based on the data, that all starts with your own confidence about that data and understanding, have I created the right infrastructure, governance processes, and measurement metrics that I know that the data I'm basing my decisions on are solid and sound. So I don't know where we are from a timing perspective. I know we're a little bit over. If there are any questions that are left here in the Q&A, we will answer them and we'll get back to you with that. I want to be conscious of people's time here, and just wanted to thank you all for the participation and engagement that you showed here today. I really appreciate that. I know Julian does. We're not just talking heads here. We want to make sure that you get value from that. And Julian, I wanted to thank you as well for sharing your insights and your participation here today. It was greatly appreciated.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and best of luck in 2022.